The night of revelation and the beginning of the tragedy. Lyra, a 17-year-old transgender girl, has always been known for her contagious energy and vibrant personality. She lived in Salem, a small town where, despite being loved by many, the life of trans people was still difficult, marked by judgmental looks and mean comments. Lyra, however, always dreamed of being accepted just the way she was. She was tired of hiding her true identity. On November 10, Lyra finally gathered the courage. She decided to go to a party with her closest friends and reveal her transgender identity. The atmosphere at the party was relaxed, and she expected her friends to react with support and understanding. But what happened was quite different. When Lyra opened up to those present and told the truth about her identity, she was met with hostility. Marcos Heller, one of the friends present, immediately reacted with words of contempt and discrimination. The celebratory atmosphere quickly turned into a nightmare. Instead of support, she was attacked with harsh insults and physical aggression. It was as if her revelation had provoked a wave of hatred within the room. Lyra, who had expected acceptance, felt humiliated. She tried to distance herself from the situation, but the physical violence hit her hard. Due to the attack, Lyra ended up running away from the party, leaving behind what should have been a moment of celebration and liberation. Despair took over her heart. That night, instead of marking her transition, sealed a deep pain and a feeling of insecurity that would haunt her. When morning came, Astrid, Lyra's mother, realized that her daughter was not at home. Although she believed that Lyra might have gone out somewhere, concern soon took over. She tried to call her, but her calls went unanswered. Astrid, feeling that something was wrong, began looking for Lyra in the places she usually frequented. The search, however, was fruitless. Lyra was not in any of these places. Astrid, with a heavy heart, decided to go to the police, hoping that the authorities could help her find her daughter. Astrid's search and the community's silence. Astrid went to the police station seeking help, but to her surprise, she was met with a cold and indifferent attitude. The disappearance of Lyra, a young transgender woman, did not seem to be a priority for the police. Astrid felt that the case was being undervalued, perhaps due to prejudice, or simply a lack of empathy. The authorities were not willing to act quickly, and this increased Astrid's anguish, who could not understand the indifference towards her daughter's disappearance. Desperate, Astrid began her own search. She distributed posters throughout the city and spoke to Lyra's acquaintances, trying to find any clue that could lead to her daughter's whereabouts. But as time went by, the feeling of being alone and helpless grew worse. The community did not seem to care. Lyra's group of friends, who were at the party where she was attacked, remained completely silent. No one wanted to get involved, and the lack of answers left Astrid increasingly desolate. The lack of information was frightening. Every door she knocked on seemed closed, and every conversation seemed to end without any news. The city of Salem, which should have been a close-knit community, now seemed distant, cold and indifferent to the suffering of a desperate mother. Astrid's loneliness grew, but she did not give up. She knew that, regardless of how the world reacted, she had to fight for the truth and find her daughter. While Astrid faced the apathy of the city, Silas, one of the friends present at the party, was tormented by guilt. He knew what happened to Lyra. He knew he could have done something to stop the violence she suffered, but he did not act. The weight of guilt and shame began to eat away at Silas, who could no longer live with his inaction that night. Silas could no longer bear the thought of having been a silent accomplice. Consumed by shame, he sought out a close friend and, with a trembling voice, revealed everything he had witnessed. He told how Lyra had been assaulted and humiliated, and how he had done nothing to stop the attack. His friend, horrified, went to the police and told them what he knew, beginning a new phase in the investigation. The revelation and the search for justice. The police, now with a new lead, began to treat the case more seriously. The investigation began to gain more attention, and it soon became clear that Lyra's disappearance was not a simple case of disappearance, but rather a crime motivated by hate and transphobia. Silas' words, although late, were crucial in revealing the truth. The city of Salem, which had been immersed in silence, was now seeing the case in a new light. Lyra had not simply disappeared. She had been the victim of a brutal attack, motivated by hatred against her identity. The violence she suffered was a reflection of the prejudice present in society, a reflection of how, even in environments that should be safe, such as a circle of friends, transgender people still face the weight of intolerance. With the investigation underway, Lyra's friends began to be called to testify. Some, like Silas, showed remorse and were willing to collaborate with the truth. Others, however, continued to remain silent, protecting the attackers and perpetuating the cycle of silence that had taken over Salem. Tension in the city was increasing, as the truth was finally coming to light, but the resistance of those who did not want to see reality was also strong. Astrid, although relieved to know that something was being done, still felt the pain of losing her daughter. Lyra's search for justice was not limited to the trial of the attackers. For her, this fight was also for the memory of her daughter and for raising awareness about violence against transgender people. Every detail that emerged during the investigation was a crucial piece in ensuring that Lyra's death was not in vain. The trial and Lyra's enduring legacy ***. The trial of those responsible for Lyra's death finally arrived. The courtroom was tense. Astrid watched intently, trying to find some kind of relief in justice, but she knew that nothing could bring her daughter back. For her, the trial was more than a quest for revenge. It was an opportunity to give voice to Lyra's pain, a chance to make visible the suffering of so many trans people who are victims of violence and hate. Silas Jor, Lyra's friend who had opened up about what happened, was charged with involuntary manslaughter. His defense argued that he felt fear and guilt, but the prosecution highlighted his inaction in the face of the attack. Silas was sentenced to 7 years in prison, with the possibility of a reduction. Marcos Heller and Ryan, the main attackers, faced charges of second-degree murder. Marcos was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and Ryan to 20. Mark Pierce, who had pressured Lyra to come out, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for inciting violence. While the sentences would not bring Lyra back, Astrid knew that the fight for justice was just beginning. Her daughter's case could not be forgotten. It was a milestone in the fight against transphobia and violence against trans people. Lyra's memory became a symbol of resistance and hope. Astrid founded an organization in her memory, to support trans families and promote visibility for the community. The town of Salem, once marked by silence, began to transform, with more people joining the fight for equality and justice for trans people. Astrid's journey was far from over. Though she knew the pain would never go away, she found strength in the fight for a more just future. Lyra's legacy would live on, inspiring social, legal, and cultural change across the country.